Welcome, I'm Dawn Hayes. So lovely to practice with you today. We'll start on a blanket on top of your sticky mat. If you don't have a blanket, a beach towel works really well. If you happen to have a strap or a scarf, something to connect your hands or your feet in your hands, grab that. And if you have blocks, have those. If you don't have blocks, a step stool or some sort of small support for your hands, or even like a bookshelf or a wall could work well. When you get started, you'll be on your back. As you come into Shavasana, drop your bones. How events from your life and from the world have left an impression or created some sort of internal experience for you today. And as we work through these 4 layers of learning and practice tonight, the unconscious incompetency, or this idea that you don't know that you don't know, is somewhere that we have all been and we still are in many ways. And gradually it becomes conscious incompetency, where you are now aware that you don't know. And with time and with practice, it becomes conscious competency, where you take effort and care and attention to cultivate ease. And eventually that becomes unconscious competency, what I sometimes think of as the flow state. And so in practice tonight, we might go through all of these layers. And in some ways, all of them will exist at the same time in different relationships within your body and your practice and in your life. My invitation for you tonight is to be curious about the practice of learning and to acknowledge and give yourself compassion when it feels uncomfortable and difficult. And so as you start to move tonight, you can bring your arms out to the sides, bend your knees, and set your soles of your feet to the floor. And with your feet about as wide as your sticky mat, inhale, tip both knees to right. Exhale, return knees to center. Inhale, tip both knees to left. Exhale, return knees to center. Continue this windshield wiper-like movement, tipping to one side, returning to center, and tipping to the other side. As you move in this way, you'll probably find this is a familiar pattern for you. But it's also new and different today. When your knees tip one direction, turn head opposite, and let yourself experience that pattern a few times. Inviting your breath and your movement to connect and to give you a chance to bring your mind, your attention into your body. Oftentimes my movement practice feels a little bit like a refuge, a place where I can come and gather some space, some time, some attention, so that I might ultimately be a little bit more at ease and ready for things that are coming, or things that I experience off my mat. The next time you're in the center, interlace your fingers behind your head and slide your upper back to the right. So you're shortening the one side and expanding the opposite side. Slide head and upper back to the center and inhale over to the other side. Exhale, return to center, and do this a few times. Feeling the slide of your body on the floor, using the blanket for that slippery surface underneath you. As you do the next round, tip knees to one side and slide head and shoulders the opposite direction. Return to center and do again the other way. Each time you slide, head and shoulders go to one side of your mat and knees tip to the opposite. I think of this as being a bit like a sea anemone. If you were in practice last week, we focused on expansion and contraction. And with expansion and contraction, they're both needed. So can you feel into expansion and contraction here? The next time you're in the center, pause there for just a moment. We're going to change the pattern slightly. This time, tip knees and slide head and shoulders the same side. Back to center, and head and knees to same side again. And alternate sides each time you do this, but knees and head travel to the same side of your mat. In general, this one feels a little bit more sticky and awkward than the first way we did it. And notice how it changes your relationship to expansion and contraction. And notice if your head wants to turn, and if it does, where. So you come back to center, extend your legs and your arms, drop your bones, and take a moment to soak in. As you come into the pause is an important place for you to see how your body is shifting and changing because of the movement. And it can help you determine what the next right action is with your movements. When you're ready, go ahead and bend your knees and turn onto your right side. And if it would be helpful for you to still see your camera and go to the left side, you can do that, or your screen. Now, as you're on your side, bend your knees and have your knees in front of your hips so that you're kind of like in a fetal position. And then take your top hand on the floor in front of you. And as you inhale, sweep your top arm up towards the ceiling. And exhale, turn your upper back and the arm behind you. Inhale, top arm up towards the ceiling, and exhale, turn your hand to the floor in front of you. Inhale, sweep arm up, and exhale, turn upper back and arm behind you. Repeat that a couple more times. Feeling into the spiral rhythm and really emphasizing your upper back moving towards the earth behind you. And your eyes and your head following the hand wherever it travels. As you do one or two more here, continue that rhythm, that pace. And then the next time your hand is on the floor in front of you, pause there. Now straighten your legs out on the mat so that they're moving towards the short edge of your mat. And if it's possible for you, like a ruler, making yourself as straight as you can, parallel with the back edge of your mat. And take your top hand on your leg for a moment and balance there. Now experiment with bringing both arms overhead and straightening them out on the earth. And is it possible to use your bottom hand to grab your top wrist and pull the top hand and the top ankle away from one another? So you're pushing out through your heel as you pull with the arm, getting as long as you can. The top leg will float a little bit now. Let go with the bottom hand, plant it to the floor somehow. Now keep the leg and the arm that are lifted a little away from the floor so they're floating a bit. And the leg will travel back a little behind you as the arm travels forward a little in front of you. And notice how and what happens with your head. And just check in with if it's comfortable. If it's not, do something a little different. Now reverse the movement. So the arm moves a little behind you and the leg moves a little bit in front of you. So you're going to start to twist a little bit more here. You might even turn your upper back towards the floor some as the arm comes in front, or the leg comes in front of you. And then reverse that movement again, where you bring your top hand in front of you and your top leg behind you. Things should feel moderately wobbly because your bottom leg is straight. And so let that be a little bit wobbly and experiment with this little bit of reach, this little bit of spiral. Notice when it feels most wobbly for you and how your body accommodates that wobble. Now the next time your hand is in front of you and the leg is behind you, bend your bottom knee, so the leg that's on the floor, so the knee is in front of your hip like it was a little while ago. Bend the top knee and start to curl the foot behind you as you reach your top hand in front of you. Now if it's comfortable for you, bring your forehead to the floor and reach your bottom arm back behind you away from the top arm. As you check in with that, you're still bending your top knee, and you might even bring your back hand, that bottom hand, to hook the foot behind you. So the foot comes to the hand or the hand comes to the foot. And check in with what that feels like for you. Let go of the foot with your hand. Bring your bottom arm back underneath your head to support you. And start to spiral the top arm behind you, the top leg in front of you, until your upper back is on the floor and the leg and the arm are still on opposite sides of the body, reaching away from one another. Now, optional, take your right hand, the bottom hand to the top foot, which should be somewhere near it, and then stretch your bottom leg out. So you're reaching the bottom leg straight. And check in with what that feels like. It's kind of like revolved triangle on your back. If you happen to be a little familiar with that pose, with that standing pose, or if you're a little unfamiliar with where you're heading here, which I would expect, right? This should be unfamiliar territory in some respects. And then as you're ready, go ahead and unravel this twisty business and rest on your back and pause in Shavasana for a couple seconds. As you drop your bones, notice what you feel. Right side, left side, how are they different? And what feels new and what feels different? As you're ready, bend your knees and roll onto your second side. As you come onto your second side, knees are in front of your hips, kind of like you're in an embryo shape. Reach your top hand on the floor. Inhale, reach the arm up towards the ceiling, and then twist your upper back and your arm behind you towards the earth. Reverse that arm up towards the ceiling and exhale, hand to the floor in front of you. Repeat that a couple times. Inhale, arm to the ceiling. exhale, turn upper back and arm towards the floor. And as you experiment with this twisting movement, you might find that this is relatively familiar, although it may feel different today than it has on other days. And as you get into the rhythm, into the pulse of this, notice how the ribs and your breath move. Then next time your arm is in front of you, pause there for a moment. Start to straighten your legs out on the mat so that you're like a ruler with the long edge of your mat. Almost like you're standing in the mountain pose. Your feet will reach away from you, head will reach away from feet. Take your top hand on your thigh and see how it is to balance without the assistance of your arm. Bring the bottom arm onto the floor underneath your head and reach the top arm to meet it. So the bottom hand grabs the top wrist. The top leg floats a little off the bottom leg. And you're pushing the heel and pulling the arm as long away from one another as you can. Just check in. What's the balance like here? Have your front ribs popped forward? Are you rocking a little forward and backward here? When you're ready, let go of that top hand and experiment with reaching your arm a little bit forward as your leg goes a little back. When you're ready, slowly reverse that. You don't have to travel very far for you to feel the way your body adjusts and adapts to this. And you might try it a couple times going in slow motion, imagining that you're moving at the pace of a banana slug. Having the bottom leg straight here will make the balance significantly more challenging. And if you want, you can exaggerate the reach forward and backward, although that will start to turn your upper back a little bit. So feel free to experiment in a range that feels good to you. Again, noticing the way your body accommodates the imbalance here. And eventually, you'll pause with the top hand on the floor in front of you as you reach the top leg behind you and bend your knee. Now, to help you with your balance here, also bend the bottom leg, the one on the floor, and have that knee in front of your hip so you have a little bit more ease. Now, depending on how you're feeling, you'll keep your top hand on the floor in front of you, but turn your chest more towards the floor as if you were going to spin your belly and your forehead to the earth, possibly reaching the bottom hand back behind you and feeling into what that's like for you. Now that hand and foot that are now behind you could meet. On the first side we did this, you probably didn't get a good glimpse of that, but now you might be able to see it a little better on your screen. So you're kind of working towards a back bend here, as I'm sure you're feeling. And there's opportunity for quadriceps stretch. And then when you're ready to let go of the foot, you do so. You can keep the leg behind you for another moment or so. Eventually, you'll tuck that bottom arm back underneath your head, and the leg and the arm will spin onto opposite sides of the body away from one another. Your upper back comes to the floor behind you. Perhaps your bottom hand, which is now reaching towards the top foot, will hook hold of one another, or this is where your strap can come in handy, and you'll stretch your bottom leg away from you. So it's kind of like revolve triangle if you happen to know that pose. You can always finagle whatever feels best for you, because it's not really what it looks like here. It's about what you're feeling here. So as you sense into that, really observing body, breath. Places where it feels stiff or tight. Places where it feels a little tender. And now as you unravel, let's come into the belly. So however it works for you to spin your way around. I'm making some little hissing noises, kind of like a cobra. So as you come onto your belly, pause for a moment, resting there. As you have your forearms on the floor in front of your chest, stack your hands one on top of another in front of your sternum. As you press your palms down into the floor, inhale, float your chest a little bit off the floor. Exhale, lower back to the earth. Repeat that a few times. Inhale, lifting your chest. Exhale, lower back down. Inhale, lifting from chest, but find some stability in your legs. How are your legs helping you lift your upper body? The next time you lift, also lift your legs as you lift your chest. Exhale, lower down. Repeat that a few times. Each time you float off the floor, following the pace of your breath and riding the breath back down to the earth. The next time you lift, pause on this round and very slowly start to bend your knees. As you very gradually bend your knees, can you keep your thighs lifted? And then eventually extend the legs back out and lower down. Wiggle the hips a little bit side to side and check in for a moment here. When you're ready, inhale back to the cobra position. As you come back to the cobra position, lifting chest, lifting legs. I'm sorry, this is the Shalabhasana, the locust. Exhale, lower back down. Let's repeat once more, lifting. This time hold again, and at the count of 10, slowly bend your knees. So 10, go a little bit more bent, 9, a little bit more bent, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Lift a little more and lower down. Whew, rest completely. Let everything soften. You can shake your hips a little bit side to side. And then as you're ready, inhale into table position, hands and knees. And do a couple rounds of the cat-cow. Chin to chest, rounding back body. Inhale, a gentle back bend, heart forward, looking up. And do that a couple more times. Emphasizing the parts of the movement that feel really good for you right now. And as you finish the one you're on, fold up your blanket. And let's come into the downward facing dog. So you can set your blanket off to the side. As you come into the downward facing dog, press into your hands, lift and lower your heels. Finding that steadiness through the earth. Inhale into plank position. Exhale, downward facing dog. Do that a couple times. Inhale into plank. Exhale, downward facing dog. Continue to ride the waves of your breath. And checking in and noticing what's obvious, what's subtle, what's familiar, what's unfamiliar. Eventually, walk your feet to the front of your mat. As you push into your feet, inhale, reach for the sky. Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, arms by your sides. Samastitihi. Inhale, chair pose. Exhale, return to standing. Do this a couple times. Inhale, chair pose. Exhale, return to standing. As you keep moving at the pace of your breath, let your inhale lift the arms, but also lower your legs. And let the exhale press you back up to standing. Feeling that sense of the arms floating as the legs power you up to standing. Then next time you're in the chair pose, hold there. And as you check in with the breath, what's it like now? How does holding the pose change your experience compared to flowing into and out of it? Exhale, fold forward, Uttanasana. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, plank position. Exhale, knees to the floor or straight legs for chaturanga in slow motion. Lowering to the floor for cobra or into upward facing dog. And exhale back to downward facing dog. Inhale, lift your right leg up towards the ceiling. Make a couple circles with your right foot and ankle. And go the other direction with your circles. Exhale, step forward for high lunge. Right foot to meet your hands. Lift your torso, sweep your arms up for the sky. Pause and check in for a moment. Would it be helpful for you to move a little bit tonight like you did in the chair pose, where you come up and you lower your arms down, and you bend your front knee and you lift your arms back up? Or would it feel more appropriate to pause and linger for a couple seconds in the chair? As you find your steadiness, as you find your balance, continue to connect to your breath. Exhale, hands to earth, downward facing dog. Inhale, left leg reaches for the ceiling, three-legged dog. Make some circles with your left foot going one direction, going the other direction. On your exhale, step the foot forward for high lunge. And as you find your way in, you decide if it would be helpful to stay and hold or to pulse with your breath as you did in the chair pose. When you find your way into your practice and you follow the guidance of your body, you're developing that conscious competency where you know and you understand and you develop some attention around your actions with purpose, with awareness. As you exhale, return to the downward facing dog. Inhale into plank. Exhale, slow motion chaturanga. And inhale, either up dog or cobra. Exhale, back to downward facing dog. From your downward facing dog, inhale, lift your heels, look forward. Exhale, step or float your feet to meet your hands. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, fold, Uttanasana. Inhale, reach for the sky, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, arms by your sides. Samastitihi. From here, we'll do another round. Inhale, chair pose. Pause and linger there for a moment. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, right leg lifts up for the ceiling. Exhale, step forward for high lunge. This time we're going to add something. So from your high lunge, take your right hand to your right hip and side bend to the left. As you side bend to the left waist and ribs will get really wide and the right side will shorten or contract. Dig a little deeper into your left big toe, like you're trying to make a fist into the floor using your big toe. And experiment with what it's like to go a little lower through your front leg, to go a little higher, and find the spot that offers you something you want to stay with for another couple breaths. Experimenting how exaggerating the shortening, the contraction of the waist on the right helps to create a little bit more emphasis in the lengthening on the left. Inhale back to neutral, pause there, reach arms for the sky. Exhale, downward facing dog, stepping back. Inhale, left leg sweeps for the ceiling, three-legged dog. Exhale, step forward, high lunge. Lift your torso. Take your left hand to your left hip. Side bend to the left. Grip your right big toe into the floor, really focusing on that squeezing with the arch of the foot. Almost like you're trying to pull the heel of the right foot towards your right big toe. And at the same time, you're trying to squeeze your right big toe towards the heel, even though the floor is in the way of that. You can go a little bit higher or lower with your front hip to find just the right focus for what's happening in your torso and the legs. Lower is not always the better choice. It's just about what's right today. As you take your last couple seconds here, how can you exaggerate the contracting or shortening on the left side? And is that helpful to exaggerate that? Inhale, both arms, torso, reach up. Can you get long evenly? Exhale, downward facing dog. This time, inhale into the plank position. Pause there, lean to the right, lean to the left. Do that a few more times. So keep your waist stable and have the leaning happen in your shoulders. So if I turn to face you, my torso stays really stable, but shoulders go side to side, depending on how this is, of course, for your wrists. Then next time you're in the center, come back to downward facing dog. Inhale, heels lift, look forward. Exhale, step or hop feet to meet hands. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, fold, chin to chest. Inhale, reach for the sky. Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, arms by your sides. Samastitihi. Inhale, chair pose. Pause and linger here. Once again, checking in with your breath. What's most obvious? What's familiar? Exhale, fold forward, Uttanasana. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, reach your right leg up towards the ceiling. This time, step forward for warrior two. Exhale, right foot to hands. Ground your left heel and inhale, lift into the warrior two. As you turn to the long edge of your mat, bend your front knee deeply, have the arms extended out. Inhale, tip into side angle, reaching bottom arm in front of you, top arm overhead. Exhale, return to warrior two. Inhale, reverse warrior, leaning back. And continue this pattern a few more times. Inhale, side angle, reaching forward. Exhale, warrior two. Inhale, reverse warrior, leaning back. Exhale, warrior two. As you do a couple more rounds, check in with how one side of the waist gets short and contracts, and the other side gets long and expands. And noticing what's familiar, what's new, what have you not done before, or perhaps not done recently. On your next exhale, downward facing dog, hands to the floor, windmilling, stepping back. Inhale, left leg reaches for the ceiling. Same thing on left side. Exhale, step forward, warrior two. Ground your back heel. Turn your torso open to the long side of your mat. Inhale, side angle. Exhale, warrior two. Inhale, reverse warrior. Exhale, warrior two. Keep going, noticing the movements of your torso in conjunction with your breath. What about this is new and challenging? What about this is familiar but still takes effort? The next time you find yourself leaning towards your side angle, follow that into the downward facing dog. Downward facing dog. From your downward facing dog, optional vinyasa or any combination of stillness and movement. Checking in with what you're feeling, with what you're noticing. We'll meet in downward facing dog. Inhale, lift your heels, look forward. Exhale, step or hop your feet to meet your hands. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, fold. Inhale, reach for the sky. Exhale, arms by your sides. So I want to demonstrate the next round because it might be something you haven't done before. So we're going to start from the down dog. And from the down dog, you'll step into the warrior two that you did just a moment ago. But then from the warrior two, you're going to lift your back heel. You're going to turn and you're going to twist across the midline. So it's like you're coming into the revolved lunge. And then you'll unravel that back to warrior two. And you'll repeat, windmilling the arms, unraveling, and you'll keep going a couple times. So when you're ready, start at the top of your mat. Inhale, chair pose. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, reach your right leg up towards the ceiling. Exhale, warrior two. Step your right foot forward. Ground your left heel, windmill up. Now pause for a moment in your warrior two. Your front leg will stay really stable, but your back leg is going to transition, heel off the floor, turn your hips forward, reach and twist. So you're now reaching your left arm across the right thigh in the revolved high lunge. Then unravel that. Let your arms be like windmills where they carry you around into warrior two. And keep going. So as you did on the floor earlier, the arm and the leg leverage one another as you move. As you find your way back to the warrior two, open, wide, stable, heel down. As you make your way to the high lunge, heel lifted, cross the midline, maybe more wobbly in that front leg. And then back to warrior two. Good. If you want to do one more, you can. If you want to pause, we're all going to meet down in the downward facing dog whenever you're ready. From your down dog, we'll do the second side. Inhale, left leg reaches for the sky. Exhale, warrior two, step forward. Pause, get your bearings, stabilize that front leg. When you're ready, sweep your back heel off the floor, reach the right arm up and then across the front leg, the left leg. Reverse that back to the warrior two, heel to the floor, arms reach away from one another. Keep reaching arms away from one another as your right arm crosses your midline, your right heel lifts, revolved lunge. Try that a couple more times. See what happens. Kind of like what you did earlier in the practice on the floor. There's this steadiness of the front leg and this pivoting of the other limbs around it. Whew. When you finish the one you're on, or do the next one and then finish that, we'll meet in downward facing dog. From your downward facing dog, you could come into the malasana, the squatting position. You might find your way into a vinyasa, the chaturanga, the up dog, a child's pose, table position with the cat-cow. There's lots of movement and postures that would be appropriate for checking in, so find yours. When you're ready, we'll meet in the downward facing dog once again. From your downward facing dog, lift heels, look forward, and step or hop your feet to meet your hands. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, fold, chin to chest. Inhale, push through your feet, reach for the sky. Exhale, arms by your sides, samastitihi. Take your feet wide and step to the long edge of your mat for Prasarita Padottanasana. In this wide-legged position, reach your arms out to the sides. Exhale, tip one hand to opposite foot. Inhale, lift back up to standing. Exhale, tip your other hand to the opposite foot. Inhale, up to standing. As you continue to rotate, you'll twist and fold, bringing hand to foot, exploring this pattern a few times. As you notice what it feels like to travel to each side, observe any differences. The next time you tip your hand down, you can pause and hold for a couple breaths. Noticing what it feels like on this side and experimenting with how pushing your feet into the floor can add some stability to your legs. Lift to center and change sides. In some ways, coming from this pause makes it a little bit more tricky to stand up because you've lost the momentum for a moment. But giving yourself to linger in this shape can help to reveal some things that are new and different in your experience. When you're ready, you'll lift back up. Interlace your fingers behind your back, or this could be a great time to grab your strap. Lift and lengthen your chest, looking up towards the sky. Exhale, hinge and fold forward. If it's okay on your shoulders, you can keep your hands on the strap or interlaced behind you. Find the steadiness in your feet. How does gravity impact shoulders and arms here? And what are you noticing in the back of your legs? When you're ready, bring the hands to the earth for added support. And nod your head yes a few times. Shake your head no. As you press into your feet, inhale, lift up to standing. Walk your feet towards one another and turn back to the top of your mat. Inhale, chair pose. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, plank. Chaturanga, either straight legs or knees to the floor, lowering slowly. Inhale, either cobra or up dog. And exhale, back to down dog. Inhale, kneel onto the floor and add a blanket under your knees. Now with blanket under your knees, step your right foot forward and we'll do kind of a 90-90 position. So in 90-90 position, your hips are over your back knee and your front knee is directly over your front heel. Now as you're in that position, can you engage the lower buttocks and tuck your tailbone towards the earth a little? Lift your left arm up by your ear and side bend to the right. Now we did this in the lunge earlier, but as you find it here, can you scissor or pull your right heel back and your left knee forward? I kind of think this is a little bit like a proposal. Makes me think a bit of The Bachelor, right? So it's not a lunge position. So like you don't see people proposing like this, right? It's much more vertical. So as you side bend here, you could bring your right arm behind you and hook it on your left waist and buttock area. Inhale, come back to center. Now bring your front foot way forward and shift your hips towards your front heel. Now this could be a good time to bring your hands to the floor or to blocks, depending on what feels better for you. As you sink into that front heel, front hip, your back hip is quite a bit in front of your back knee. Now, depending on how your knee feels, bend your back knee to bring your heel in the general direction of your buttock. And with your hands here on the floor and your front hips forward quite a bit, you may not need to go very far before you feel lots of things in your left leg and quadricep. Can you focus on your hamstring? Can you contract the hamstring a little bit, or maybe even feel the sole of your foot contract a little bit? Then, if it feels good to you, with your left hand either on a block or on the floor, twist your right shoulder over your left and reach your right hand for your left foot. Depending on how this feels for you, it might be better to bring your buttock back towards your heel, squeeze the heel towards the buttock, and then gently explore the sensation, which means your hip won't be quite as far forward, but you're really prioritizing the quadricep. Now there's probably lots of feels to feel. And if things are new and different here, take your time. When you're ready, let go of the foot, take hands to floor. and step back to downward facing dog. As you pause in your down dog, your choice, some combination of stillness and movement for the vinyasa, or anything else that feels good in your body in this moment. Eventually, we'll meet on your knees, where you stand on your knees and step your left foot forward. Now again, we're starting out with that proposal or the bachelor shape. Front knee over heel, back hip over knee. There's a sense of trying to scissor the legs towards one another. Reach your right arm by your ear and side bend to the left. As you side bend to the left, keep scissoring and prioritize your hips over the back knee rather than in front of them. Notice where and how you feel the sensation here. What does it ask of you to have the hips a little bit more in this 90-90 box shape? Inhale, back upright. Walk your front foot a little farther forward. So now you're bringing your hands to either side of your front foot. And as you adjust that, experiment with what it feels like, without using your hands yet, to bend your back knee and bring your heel towards your buttock. Whew. My quadricep has a lot to talk to me about. I went hiking in Fall Creek yesterday and went up a rather steep trail. So as you find your way here, can you focus on how the contraction of your hamstring helps to facilitate and support the lengthening of your quadricep? What does that ask of you? Can you get your foot involved too, almost like a ballerina, really pointing your toes? Like you're trying to bring your heel closer to your toes and your toes closer to your heel. Ooh, and then when you're ready, with your right hand on the block, it'll be a little easier. Right hand on the floor, a little more challenging. Turn your left shoulder and reach your left hand back towards the foot. Ooh. And notice, are there any foot cramps? Any hamstring cramps? Maybe now that your left hand is involved, it's actually a little easier on the hamstring side of things. Like we did on the first side, it's probably helpful to bring your hips back, squeeze your buttock to your heel, and then experiment with moving forward. Now, if you feel it in your knee, you're going to want to back out. And so if you feel it in the knee, what could you do a little bit differently to bring it more into your quad? And sometimes the only answer is to come out of the pose altogether. When you're ready, unravel back to your downward facing dog. And from your downward facing dog, optional vinyasa involving the chaturanga or any other combination of stillness and movement that is integrating, that is replenishing, that is centering. From your downward facing dog, lift your heels, look forward, step or hop your feet to meet your hands. If your blanket's still there, it's a nice obstacle to hop over. Lift your chest halfway into Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, fold in towards your legs. Push into your feet. Inhale, reach for the sky. Exhale, arms by your sides. Pause, check in. What's your breath feel like? So we're going to come back to a little bit of kneeling work. On your inhale, reach your arms out and up, extend for the ceiling. Exhale, hinge and fold forward, Uttanasana. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, downward facing dog. So from your down dog, lower your knees onto your blanket. Take your hands to your hips. Have your toes tucked under initially. Step your right foot in front of you. Now, using both legs, but ideally arms are either hands on hips or floating in space, stand up. Good. Now, bring your left foot to the floor behind you as slowly as you can without using your hands. Now switch and do the other side. So notice the ball of your right big toe as you stand up onto your left leg is going to help you push off the floor. Yes? Then right foot steps back. Left knee meets right. Now this time, point both toes so your toenails are on the floor. Step your right foot forward. Now this time, don't use your left foot to help you. Lean forward, stand up. Whew. Now, if possible, step your way back down without using the toes. That'll help you a little bit. Do the second side. Left foot steps forward. Now, without using your right foot, step up onto your left leg. Whew. Right knee goes back down and left foot meets the right. Now we're going to add a piece to this. So if you want to watch this one, you can. So step your right foot forward. Now this time as you lift up, you're going to reach your left hand for your right foot and come into the dancer pose. And then you'll step down. And you can do the same side a couple times. Sometimes that's easier. So right foot steps forward. You're going to lift your way up into dancer and lower your way down. And lift your way up and lower your way down. Last one here. Hold the dancer for a moment. Reaching left hand for left foot. Extend your right arm forward. Here's where it could be helpful to use the wall or a bookshelf in front of you or a chair. Now let go of the foot. Is it possible for your knee to touch the floor before your toes do? Whew. Easier said than done, by the way. And it usually at the end goes something like this. Okay, second side. Left foot forward. Remembering to leverage your weight into the front foot as you lift up into the dancer. And lower back down. And try that a couple times. So notice my arms are kind of doing this scissoring thing because I'm using them for momentum. My front leg arm starts by my hip and then I go up. And again, the tendency is for the back leg to try to push off the floor. Can you encourage the front leg to do 99.9% of the work? Whew. As you stand up this next one, stay there. Reach your left arm forward, your right arm back. Push back into your right foot like you're an archer. Pulling back the bow. Now, is it possible to lower the knee to touch the floor before the toes? Eventually, someday, without the drop. Okay, both knees on the blanket. Engage the upper hamstrings and your lower buttocks. Imagine you've got little buttons on your front ribs and you're buttoning them down to your thigh bones. Lean back. So it's not a back bend. It's more like you're staying in a strong plank position. Engage the buttocks, engage the abdominal muscles, lean back. Check in with that. Whew. Back upright. Then your choice, camel pose, or if it would be more appropriate for your low back to do bridge pose, do bridge pose. Find that engagement of legs. Lean back. Then with hands to hips, curl your chest up, finding the camel. If you want to take hands to heels, you can. Your blocks or your bolster might be a better fit. When you're ready, come up. Take a seat. What's it like now? One more back bend, repeating the camel, or I'll demonstrate the bridge in case you would like a demo of that. In the bridge pose, you'll start with knees bent, feet on the floor. When you're ready, lifting spine off the earth. Your choice, the camel or the bridge. If your low back is feeling achy, the bridge is probably a better fit. The camel I find to be one of the more challenging back bends. When you're ready, go ahead and lower down. If you're in the camel, we're going to come up to seated. So whenever you're ready, lift up to a seated position. Have a nice, fairly thick folded blanket and sit on the edge of it. And extend your legs out in front of you. Bend your right knee so that the sole of the right foot is about a hand's distance from your left leg. And check in there for a moment. As you're there, can you draw the knee towards the chest and at the same time bring your belly and torso a little bit closer to the leg? Now keeping that sense of drawing towards the midline, twist your belly towards the right knee or towards the bent knee. Now if you're pregnant or menstruating, this would be a good twist to do the other way where you're turning away from the thigh. As you push down through your front foot, the sole of your right foot roots down, the center of your heel presses into the earth, and gradually feel that turning of your chest, of your spine. Where is the twist most noticeable to you? And can you bring your attention to the back of your heart, where the front of your spine is? And can you turn from deep in there? De-rotate, and we'll change sides. Extend your straight leg, which is, I think, the right leg, and bend your left knee. So there's about a hand's distance between your left foot and your right leg. And then as you twist here, you're turning your belly towards the thigh. And I have a tendency to do a back bend in this twist. And if you catch yourself doing the same thing, can you bring your attention to the back of your heart, to the front of your spine, and can you twist from there? Letting your head go where it feels most comfortable. Chin in line with chest is probably a good option, but letting it explore where it feels best. Emphasizing the twisting from the chest and the spine rather than from your head and your neck. Now slowly de-rotate back around. From here, you're going to have The right leg bent again, but this time more like a squatting position. So take the right toes and point them a little out to the side. The right knee points a little out to the side. And then take the left leg and kind of do the same thing. So it's moving away from the midline. So my arms would be like if my legs were parallel to one another, and both my legs are a little wider than parallel. Now reach your right arm, so whichever side is the bent knee, up towards the ceiling. Remember how we did that side bend earlier? You can do that a little bit here. Then come back to center. Reach your hand and your chest forward as if you're trying to lengthen your torso out in front of you. As you lengthen your torso out in front of you, continue to feel the length in the front of your spine. And as you find that length in the front of your spine, push through both feet. The bent leg foot pushes down, the straight leg heel presses down, and you're folding towards the space between your front legs, your two legs, emphasizing a length in the front of your spine to match and support the length in the back of your spine. Inhale, lift your torso upright, and we'll change positions. Start by straightening your right leg, so you'll see you have kind of a V shape with the legs. Bend your left knee in, so it's kind of like malasana. The toes, the knee pointed a little out to the side. With right hand to the floor, start by leaning it a little bit over to your right. See if you can make the left side of your waist a little longer. Return to the center, making both sides as long as you can, and start to hinge to the inside of your bent leg. And as you play with that, push through both feet so you connect to that stability of the earth. Invite length in the front of your spine as you explore this fold forward. And we played around with some back bend shapes today. So notice how it feels to do some forward folding shapes. As you continue to press through the sole of your foot and the straight leg heel, invite that length to the front of your spine. Inhale, slowly lift your torso up. Extend both legs out. You can stay on your blanket height, but we'll take both legs wide. As you have both legs wide, you decide what sort of V you're going for. In general, I recommend kind of like a 90-degree V. And when and if it feels good to you, fold yourself forward towards the floor. Now, this also could be a really great position to do with your lying on your back with the legs up the wall, with your legs wide. I have probably enough space where I could do that there on that wall space. So I'll show real quick in case you want a visual. But I start with side to the wall and then go for this wide-legged supported position. Now, if you don't have the wall space, no big deal. I mean, you could maybe do this against your couch, depending on how tall your couch is, or you could stay in the seated variation that you're in. If you're in the seated variation, it's a bit more work to encourage the lengthening of your spine. When you lie on the back with your legs out like that, it's quite a bit easier to invite that length in your spine. So if you're in the seated variation still, can you push down more into your heels to create a little bit more support for your spine from your legs. And as you gradually find your way into where it feels moderately difficult, but not too difficult, and if you're in the supported variation, you will probably find a little bit more softness in the spine, in the breath. Gradually make your way back up to seated. Now you can stay seated on your blanket and bring your legs out in front of you. You can do this one on your back if you like. Cross your right calf over your left shin and tuck your feet by your knees. So it's kind of like Sukhasana. You know the Sukhasana, the cross-legged position? So with your shins crossed, maybe it'd be helpful if I came a little closer. With your shins crossed, it's like sitting cross-legged. Crisscross applesauce, they say in grade school, right? But your shins are parallel. So it's like a hybrid of crossing your legs and doing double pigeon. If you know double pigeon, you can do double pigeon. That one's not okay for my hips to do, but this one is. So when and if it feels okay for you, fold forward a bit for your legs or towards your legs. On your back, it would look like this, where your shins cross, hands come to the feet, and you tuck in. Whichever side you're on, it could be helpful to have your blanket tucked under your knees on top of your feet as you fold forward. And as you ease into this, finding your breath, I just realized that my watch is wrong. And so we're going to head to Shavasana in just a moment. As you lift up, go ahead and do the second side for a moment. You'll find it's a little different than the first side. The opposite shin on front or on top. Gradually folding your way forward. Now, generally, the second side is a little bit more prickly than the first side. And so if you'd like to stay here for a little bit longer, you can. Whenever you're ready, set yourself up for Shavasana. As you extend your legs and your arms, and drop your bones. Giving yourself a chance to rest, to be nourished by your attention, your focus, your dedication, and your discipline to cultivating awareness and developing new patterns, to developing new clear ways of seeing movement in your body and change in your life and in the world. Slowly wiggle your fingers and your toes. Roll your ankles and your wrists. Bend your knees. Gradually roll to one side. And make your way up to seated when you're ready. Bring your palms together in front of your heart. As you check in at the end of your practice, take a moment to give gratitude for the time and effort and dedication that you utilized to bring yourself here today for practice. And may this time that we share together in practice be a benefit to all of us, but to everyone in our immediate lives and in the wider world. Thank you so much for joining today. Such an honor and a pleasure to practice with you all. Thank you so much.